Hello and welcome to the Tech with Heart show. I am your host, Michelle Calloway. Tech with Heart is all about empowering entrepreneurs to be successful in a rapidly changing digital environment. And one of the topics that we always like to talk about is how can you take your message and go bigger with it in an online world? Well, today's guest is going to talk about that specifically in the realm of podcasting and how you as an expert can be a guest on somebody else's podcast, but that doesn't stop there. It's about how do you go in with a strategy so that you can actually monetize other people's airtime. So with us today, we have a very special guest. Her name is Suthar, and she is a global sales expert. She actually has spent a lot of time in live events industry and working like the back of the room and really helping any speaker make a lot of money from showing up one to many. And that is the audience. You know, you want to show up online now through using your voice, you're using video, whatever you can to get your message out there and broadcast to bigger live audiences. So Kay has actually created her Make Your Mark podcast agency that's going to help enlighten and empower business experts so that they can shine and attract all kinds of clientele from them by being a guest on somebody else's show. So she has her own show called Uncensored Society Podcast, and I know she's going to talk about that a little bit, but let's go ahead and roll right into this. Welcome to the Tech with Heart stage, Kay.
Oh my goodness, thank you for having me here. I've been so looking forward to this.
I'm excited too. So how did you get into podcasting since your background is mostly in the sales and live events? Can you tell us that story?
Yes, do you know what? And with most things, right, I find things just happen by accident, right? And that's exactly what happened with me. Now, before the pandemic happened, I was going all over the world, flying here, there, everywhere at different events, live and serving clients there, speakers there. And then when the pandemic happened, that's it. There was no events. Right? But at that point, I was like, okay, just because the world has shut down doesn't mean you stop promoting yourself, right? You still need to get out there. So I'm like, okay, we're all stuck at home. The only option to still promote yourself is podcasting, right? And getting used to the digital platform. And so I started getting on different podcasts. Now, I've got to say this, Michelle, it wasn't easy in the beginning, right? I had a plan, and the plan was pretty simple. Get booked on podcasts. Everybody's going to listen to it. They're going to love me. And then I'm going to make bank. That was it. Oh, that piece of cake. No, that wasn't the case. I found that there's a strategy that you got to follow. There's certain tactics that you got to follow. And for a long time, I wasn't getting on podcasts. People weren't even responding to me. The worst thing about getting rejections is when you hear nothing at all, right? And so I kind of went away and decided, okay, I've got to figure this out because people are getting on podcasts. What am I doing wrong? And after a couple of months of strategizing and trying different approaches and tactics, all of a sudden, it was like gold. I got booked on 100 podcasts in 60 days. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm onto a winner here. And so I started getting booked on podcasts, telling people about what I do, you know, the things that I've gone through, experiences, journeys. And all of a sudden, people are asking me, how the hell are you doing this? How are you getting booked on so many podcasts? And all of a sudden, I was like, ding, ling, ling. Okay, maybe I need to start teaching people this, right? And so that's how all of that began.
Well, I'm really so glad to hear that you've come from a place of figuring it out, because that makes you very much more relatable. And the fact that you did hit such high volume in such a short period of time is also very, accolades, congratulations, that's excellent. And so people will appreciate that when they go to you, because your background isn't in podcasting and your background isn't in, teaching people how to be a guest, but you figured out a system. And I know you've got a signature system that you teach, when that's very exciting because that makes you very unique in what you teach. But tell us a little bit about the mistakes that you see people doing all the time that you yourself even made. What is one of the biggest mistakes you see podcast hosts and their guests make?
Okay, so I guess the biggest mistake that podcast hosts make is that they plan too much. There's way too much planning, right? And you can over plan. And what I mean by that is they want to have the exact questions set out, right? And the same questions asked to the same guest. And it gets very robotic. But that's not what podcast is all about. And you know this, Michelle, right? It's about having conversation and listening to the guest. And by listening to the guest, you'll be able to ask more questions, right? And it is about listening. I think a lot of podcasters kind of go out there and think, they're going to ask set questions. They're not going to ask anything else, but that's not how a conversation rolls. You might have a few questions that you ask particular guests or, certain guests, but then there's other questions that come out of a conversation. And that's what podcasting is all about. That's what having a conversation is all about. Kind of getting into the nitty-gritty and finding out what the guest has to say, because you never know what the guest says, right? Sometimes something might come out that kind of blows your mind and you're kind of like, oh my goodness, I need to know more about that. What does that mean? Right? So listen to your guests. As a host, you really, really, really need to listen, and you got to almost listen with a third ear, right? What are they saying, or what's between the lines? What they're really getting to, and so that's the number one thing that I find that podcasters make, right? They don't listen to the actual conversation and what the guest has to say. Now, the biggest mistake that the guest makes is that when they get booked on a podcast, they think it's all about them. Oh my goodness, I got booked on podcast. People love me. It's all about me. Oh my goodness, no, it's not about you. It has everything to do with the listener and the podcast host, and it has nothing to do with you, right? And the minute you kind of have that shift, that's when you're going to realize, the minute you change that perspective, right, and realize it's got nothing to do with you and everything to do with the audience, you'll be able to serve so much better, right? You'll be able to give so much more value, right? And that's when your listeners and the podcast hosts are going to absolutely love you. And also remembering that when you do get on podcasts, it's about building relationships, like business is all about anyway, right? So you've got to build that relationship with the podcast host, with your audience. And the only way to do that is by remembering it's not about you.
I love what you said, because I don't think that crosses a lot of people's minds. I have a thing that I do. It's all about intention. There's this thing about an intention. Like if you have an intention before you start speaking, then you basically have set the frequency. You've dialed yourself in to stay very focused on the why you're doing what you're doing. And if it really is all about you, then that frequency comes out through your tone, through your body language, even through the message. It's unbelievable how subliminal it is, but it really is what drives that connection. If your intention is purely selfish, then people will get that. And then a lot of them will choose not to work with you, not because of what you know or don't know. It's because they just don't want to work with somebody that's so focused on them. They want to work with somebody who really genuinely comes across caring about their success. And so your intention going in as a guest is truly, you're spot on there. That's just something that a lot of people aren't talking about. So congratulations on that. And I do know that you have like 3 tips that you're going to talk about today about how guests can actually monetize the opportunity of being on somebody else's show. Can you kind of share 3 tips here pretty quickly?
Yeah. So the number one thing is, and I briefly mentioned it already, is start building relationships with a podcast host, right? And the reason why I say this is because podcasters know other podcasters, right? They know other people in the industry. And so if they love your talk and they can see that you're there to serve others and it's not about you, guess what they're going to do? They're going to refer you to other podcasters, right? And that's what we want. We want visibility on different podcasts as much as possible. And rather than you trying to search and find the right podcast, wouldn't it be easy just to build that relationship and then get referred? Right?
Well, actually, yeah, isn't that just a super simple model for business per se? I mean, just if you do your job well and you actually, come across as a wonderful human being, others love to refer you. So that's a great tip. Thank you.
No worries. And the second one is really giving value, right? Give people everything that you got, right? Don't hold back anything. A lot of people that I've spoken to are like, oh, no. You can't say too much on this podcast or when you're speaking anywhere, because otherwise, if you're giving them too much, then they're never going to want to work with you. And I'm like, no, you give them everything that you got, because they're either going to love you or they're going to hate you. And if they love you, they're going to want to work with you. They're going to want to work closely with you, one-on-ones. Possibly, right? If they hate you, then that's fine too, because then they're clearly not your tribe, right? But being completely authentic, genuine, and giving all that you got is definitely going to help you in the long run, right? You're not there for the short term. When you're going out and speaking on podcasts and you're building a legacy, an empire, you got to be in it for the long run. And it all goes back to making sure you serve others, you build relationships, and you give everything that you got to your audience.
I think that's actually, there's an art to that. You definitely want to come across authentic, genuine, and you want to share that you say all that you've got. But like, for instance, you have a signature system. And so you know what's inside of that signature system. And when you're talking as a guest on a podcast, you can maybe allude to some of the elements within that system. But the fact is you're not going to give away all of the ingredients to that formula. Or you can even give away ingredients to a formula, but still, that it's just like baking a cake, everything has to be done in a certain order. And so it's like about the actual formula that works, not just the ingredients for the recipe or the formula. So there's, I hear that too. A lot of small business owners think that, well, I can't just share all my knowledge because then why would anybody hire me? And you're so right. But it's a flip. We need to flip that mindset and be more generous, especially that's one of the things that drove Tech with Heart Network to grow during the pandemic, is because all of a sudden businesses who used to rely so heavily on foot traffic into their business or whatnot, all of a sudden are scrambling, trying to figure out how they could potentially grow an online presence when they hadn't been doing so. And so I just kept showing up, just trying to provide value, and never once asked for anything in return other than my heart is simply, and my intention is simply, right, just like you, Kay, to help, to assist, to elevate, to get people out there, because we all, what did they say? Something about the sinking boat, like a rising tide lifts all ships, or something like that. So the concept is, yes, let's lift as we all rise together. Hello, there's power in numbers. Let's do this together. Yay. Okay, go on. I'm so sorry. I had to indulge on that one.
No worries. And the third tip, right, is like you mentioned, you already see that this is the call to action, the CTA pulse detection system. Okay. Now, what that really means is, when a lot of people, again, make this mistake, when they go out on podcasts, right, they tend to not realize the difference between going out to speak to talk and to speak, right? And the difference is you need to have some sort of call to action, right, once out at the end of your podcast episode, whether it be giving them a download, a checklist, booking on your one-on-one call with you. You have to give them some sort of action to take at the end. And a lot of people actually miss this out. And because they're missing this out, guess what? They're not building on the email list. Therefore, they're not being able to have conversations with them or send them further details, and where that person or a group of people could possibly be their next client, right? So they're missing out. They're actually leaving money on the table by not doing this, by not serving, by not giving them further information, right? And so if you're just talking for the sake of it, you're not a speaker, you're not speaking, you're just talking for the sake of talking. Right? And you don't ever want to do that. You need to be a speaker. You need to be able to give value, like we said before, and give people everything that you got, which means sending them more information. And then with that, this is another element that people really miss out on, is tracking, right? Tracking the people that are getting your downloadable or your checklist or booking in your calendar, and seeing where a lot of your leads are coming from. Right? And then be able to track which podcasters work for you, which doesn't work for you, where do you maybe need to change up your speech or your pitch, right? The thing is, you're not going to be able to change or improve or make tweaks unless you start tracking, right? So make sure you have a call to action, give them value, give them more information, and then track each podcast you're on to find out what's working and what isn't. That's the only way you're going to improve.
And when I first met you and we talked, I was just like, wow, that is brilliant, because why is it that most aren't doing that? But you actually have a signature system in place that helps them. So therefore, just like in the world of marketing, it's not okay to just throw like pasta against a wall and see if it sticks. You could spend waste a lot of resources doing that. And so the more that you are in the know of what it is that your target audience is struggling with, what are the questions that you should be asking, and what are the questions you should be answering. Really, if you find out the questions that they're asking, then you could create your show, your guest appearance around those problems. You can actually mention the problem and then what is the solution, and you are right there, boom. But then there's this tracking thing that a lot of even small businesses don't do in the realm of marketing. So you're talking specifically podcast, which is a form of getting your message out there, which is a form of marketing. So there's analytics to that, which are going to inform you as a business expert as to where to go and spend more time and where to hang out a little bit more, or maybe what questions to be asking so you can write blogs and you can do more video. And okay, I'm going to ask you now to tell us a little bit about, after the podcast is over, after the guest appearance has happened, what is the next step, a logical next step to elevate you as a business expert with that podcast appearance?
Wow. So I love this question, right? And it doesn't get asked enough. People tend to think that once they've done their podcast appearance, that's it, at the end of it. No, it doesn't finish there. And so the number one question to ask the podcast host once your episode has been recorded and you're done is, I would love some feedback. What did you think? No one asked that question, right? But I'm always asking that question because I need to know how I can be better. What was missing, right? I want to always keep improving and giving value. But sometimes when you're in your own head, you don't always know. And so getting a different perspective, right? And you have another ear that's actually listening to what you're saying, right? Will actually help you improve. And plus, podcasters don't get asked this question at all. And I have met a lot of podcasters where I've asked them this and they're kind of taken back, like, oh, wow, you're really asking me that question? Of course, I honor your opinion. I want to be better. And so that also shows them that you are there to serve, that guess what, you are coachable, you're there to listen, right? And you want to improve. And just that little one question will actually bring the relationship closer with you and the podcaster, and they're going to realize, okay, she's not messing around here. She is someone that I need to keep a close eye on and attention on, because not many people do this. And so again, they're going to be, when they do say to you, okay, right, I think you should do X, Y, and Z, this will make it better. Perfect. But guess what? A lot of podcasters turn around and say, oh my God, that was brilliant. I loved it. Right. And then the next question is, oh, if I was that great, do you have any other podcasters you can refer me to? Right. At that point, they can't say no.
That's a great point. Kay, you are making so many excellent points. I just love your energy as well. So let me ask you this: beyond the feedback, which I do after every single episode, I always want to find out how I can be a better host. But then, what about promoting the interview? What can you tell us in a real 1 minute? What is it that podcasters or guests of podcasts should be doing to promote this, essentially this publicity that they just received by being a guest on somebody else's show?
Right. So you ask the podcast host, do you have any graphics or, any promotional materials that you can send my way that I can share with my network? Boom. That's it. The minute you ask them that, they're going to be like, holy crap, I need to send her something. Even if I don't have anything, I need to send her something so she can share it with her network. And they will send you something, I guarantee it.
Right, because there's obviously more power when more people are sharing, and then there's the power of tagging on different social media platforms and then just raving about the host. Gracious, business experts are the ones that climb up a lot higher because they're not too proud to give accolades out to other experts. And it makes you, if that is a genuine act of service where you're going to go around and congratulate and lift up and, say things like, I was honored to be a guest on this incredible, person's show, and their heart is true to their audience. You breathe life into the show, you breathe life into the host a little bit more, then you'll see that drives conversation. It's a great way to get you built up, but also get that message out there on more platforms than just the podcast platforms. Would you agree?
Oh my God, totally. Yeah. And then when they can see that you're willing to help them out and promote them, right, they'll be willing to help promote you even further and refer you to other people.
Perfect.
It works both ways.
So when somebody's interested in learning more about how to monetize being a guest on somebody else's show, because I know that your company also does a lot of the repurposing of that content for very busy small businesses. Can you share where they can go to maybe meet with you and discuss?
Yeah, so they can go onto my website. It's called makeyourmarkagency.com. And on there we'll have all details as to what services we provide, how we can help you. And if you are interested and you want to learn more, then do get in touch with us by email. Again, that will be on the website as well. But for if you want to know, it is k@uncensoredsocietypodcast.com, right? You can catch us on there. Do send us an email as well. And Michelle, is it okay if I give your audience a free gift?
You know what? I would love for you to share any more insights. I mean, you've been a gem so far, but please do anything that they can grab hold of, connect with you, and then really start making a bigger difference for their monetary situation for being a guest on somebody else's show.
Brilliant. So I have the 3 steps of becoming a sought after podcast guest. All right. And it's 3 simple steps that people can start doing right now and implementing and getting booked on podcasts. It has 6 proven and tested methods. It will also show you how to become confident, the do's and don'ts of appearing on a podcast. And all the little tips that you need to know in order to get the podcast host to actually invite you back on their show, right? And it will boost your podcast appearance by 3 times just by following these 3 steps. And all you need to do is go to getbookedonpodcast.com. Okay, that's getbookedonpodcast.com, and you'll be able to download it right there and then.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kay. You have been a genuine gem of a guest, honestly. And I am so glad that you felt honored, or, that you would be willing to come on to the Tech with Heart show, knowing that our audience are entrepreneurs who are looking to embrace technologies and systems and strategies so that they can start becoming more competitive and relevant in an online digital world. And so if you are listening and you have you're a business expert and you have insights that you are open to sharing with an entrepreneurial audience, please go to techwithheartnetwork.com, join our community, reach out to me to be a guest. I would be honored to talk with you to discuss what would be the best fit for the message with our audience. We definitely do like to talk about different technologies, but we sometimes just talk about mindsets around technology. So it doesn't have to be a tech solution itself. Sometimes it could be about how to start embracing technology. And if you're an entrepreneur and you just want to grow alongside other excellent human beings, those who think a little bit more innovatively and those who are definitely heart-centered in how they approach the use of technology, then again, techwithheartnetwork.com is a great community. Please just go there, check us out, reach out to me. I just want you to be successful. I know Kay does too. So here is to your success. Thank you for watching.